The vast emptiness of space was no longer empty. A dark, ominous force crept through the galaxy, leaving only silence in its wake. The Void Eaters had come, and the stars trembled. On a small blue planet called Earth, life went on as usual. Humans bustled about their daily lives, unaware of the cosmic horror that approached. They were still celebrating their first successful mission to Mars, proud of their small step into the cosmic ocean. In a busy control room at NASA, Sarah Johnson stared at her computer screen, her brow furrowed in confusion. The young astronomer had been tracking an unusual signal for days. "Dr. Anderson," she called out, "you need to see this." The old scientist shuffled over, his curiosity piqued. As he leaned in to look at the screen, his eyes widened. "This can't be right," he muttered. The signal was unlike anything they had ever seen before. It wasn't random noise, nor was it any known celestial phenomenon. It was a message, clear and terrifying. "They are coming. Hide." Across the galaxy, advanced civilizations were already aware of the threat. The Zorblaxians, masters of quantum computing, had shut down all their systems. The Gleekglops, known for their fearless space explorations, had retreated to their home planet. Even the warlike Krudges had laid down their weapons and gone silent. But humans, in their blissful ignorance, continued to broadcast their presence to the cosmos. As news of the strange signal spread through Earth's scientific community, governments around the world began to take notice. Emergency meetings were called, experts were consulted, and slowly the terrible truth began to emerge. They were not alone in the universe, and they were in danger. In the White House Situation Room, President Laura Chen sat at the head of the table, her face a mask of worry. "So let me get this straight," she said, looking at the assembled group of scientists and military leaders. "There's an alien threat out there, and all the advanced alien civilizations are hiding." Dr. Anderson nodded gravely. "Yes, Madam President. From what we've been able to decipher, these Void Eaters are unlike anything the galaxy has ever faced. They don't conquer or colonize. They consume. Entire planets, stars, even the fabric of space itself." A heavy silence fell over the room. General Mike Torres, a burly man with a scared face, broke it with a snort. "So what, we're supposed to just roll over and die? Hide under our beds and hope they don't notice us?" "That seems to be what everyone else is doing," Dr. Johnson chimed in. "We've detected numerous alien signals over the past week, all of them going dark one by one. It's like watching lights being switched off across the galaxy." President Chen stood up, pacing the room. "We can't just do nothing. We're humans, damn it. We've faced extinction-level events before. Ice ages, plagues, world wars. We've always found a way. But Madam President," a nervous aide spoke up, "we're talking about a threat that even advanced alien civilizations are afraid of. What chance do we have?" The president stopped pacing and looked out the window at the Washington Monument, standing tall against the night sky. "Maybe that's exactly why we have a chance," she said softly. "We're not advanced. We're not logical. We're humans. We're too stubborn, too emotional, too human to just lie down and accept our fate." She turned back to the room, her eyes blazing with determination. "We may be afraid, but that's never stopped us before. Call the UN. Call every world leader. It's time humanity showed the galaxy what we're made of." As the room erupted into activity, no one noticed Dr. Johnson slip away to a quiet corner. She pulled out her phone and dialed a number she knew by heart. "Mom," she said when the call connected, her voice trembling slightly. "I love you. And I'm proud to be human." Across the Earth, similar scenes were playing out. Humans, faced with an unimaginable threat, were doing what they did best: rallying, planning, and refusing to give up hope. The Void Eaters were coming. But humanity was not going to hide. They were going to fight, in their own uniquely human way. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes, It takes a coward to be truly brave. The United Nations building in New York City had never seen such a gathering. Leaders from every country on Earth sat side by side, their usual rivalries forgotten in the face of a threat beyond imagination. The air was thick with tension as President Laura Chen of the United States took the podium. "My fellow humans," she began, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes, "we face a danger greater than any in our history. The Void Eaters are coming, and we are alone in our stand against them." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. A delegate from Russia stood up. "Alone? What about the advanced alien civilizations? Surely they will help us." Dr. Anderson, the elderly scientist from NASA, shook his head sadly. "I'm afraid not. Our latest data shows that all known advanced civilizations have gone dark. They're hiding, hoping the Void Eaters will pass them by." Panic began to spread through the room. The Chinese president banged his fist on the table. "Then what hope do we have? We've barely left our own planet." It was at this moment that an unexpected voice spoke up. Ahmadi, a young representative from a small African nation, stood. His voice was quiet but firm. "Perhaps that is exactly why we must fight." All eyes turned to him. Ahmadi continued, gaining confidence. "We humans have always been underdogs. We've faced ice ages with nothing but fur clothes and fire. We've crossed oceans in wooden boats. We've survived plagues, wars, and disasters. Each time, we've emerged stronger." His words seemed to ignite a spark in the room. The German chancellor nodded thoughtfully. "He's right. We may not have advanced technology, but we have something these Void Eaters might not expect." "And what's that?" someone called out. "Unpredictability," the chancellor replied. "Courage born from fear. The will to fight even when logic says we should give up." President Chen's eyes lit up. "Exactly. We're not logical like these advanced races. We're emotional, we're stubborn, and yes, we're scared. But that fear doesn't paralyze us. It drives us to action." The mood in the room began to shift. Where there had been despair, now there was a glimmer of hope. The Indian Prime Minister spoke next. "But how do we fight an enemy that consumes entire stars?" "We start small," Dr. Sarah Johnson said, stepping forward. All eyes turned to the young astronomer. "We may not be able to match their technology, but we can observe, we can learn, and most importantly, we can surprise them." As the debate raged on, plans began to form. Earth's militaries would unite under a single banner. Scientists from every nation would work together, pooling their knowledge and resources, and in secret, a special task force would be formed. Operation Whisper. Meanwhile, in a small diner in Kansas, USA, a very different scene was unfolding. Tom, a truck driver, sat at the counter, staring at the TV in disbelief. The news was reporting on the UN meeting and the alien threat. "Can you believe this, Marge?" he asked the waitress. "Aliens are coming to eat us, and the government's actually telling us about it." Marge shook her head, refilling his coffee cup. "End of the world, and people still want their eggs sunny side up. What are you gonna do, Tom?" Tom thought for a moment, then shrugged. "Keep driving, I guess. Someone's gotta keep supplies moving if we're fighting space monsters." This simple exchange was happening all over the world. Farmers kept farming, teachers kept teaching, and life went on. Humanity faced its greatest threat not by cowering, but by standing firm and carrying on. Back at the UN, as the meeting wound down, President Chen found herself standing next to Ahmadi. "Thank you," she said softly. "You reminded us all of who we are." Ahmadi smiled. "We are human," he replied. "Flawed, frightened, but unbreakable." As night fell over Earth, its inhabitants went to sleep knowing that tomorrow would bring challenges beyond their wildest dreams. But they also slept with a resolve that had defined their species since the dawn of time. They would face this threat, not because they were fearless, but because their fear made them brave. The Void Eaters were coming, but humanity, in all its messy, emotional, illogical glory, was ready to show the galaxy what it meant to truly fight against the odds. In a secret underground facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, Operation Whisper was taking shape. The room buzzed with activity as scientists, military personnel, and tech experts from around the world worked tirelessly. Their mission: to turn humanity's apparent weakness into its greatest strength. Dr. Sarah Johnson stood at the center of it all, her eyes darting between multiple screens. "We've intercepted another signal," she announced, her voice cutting through the noise. The room fell silent. A crackling sound filled the air, followed by a series of clicks and hums. To most, it would have sounded like meaningless noise, but to the trained ears in that room, it was a goldmine of information. "It's the Void Eaters," General Torres confirmed, his scared face grim. "They're closer than we thought." Dr. Johnson nodded, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "But they still don't know we're listening. Our primitive technology is our best camouflage." This was the core of Operation Whisper, using Earth's relatively simple technology to eavesdrop on the Void Eaters. While advanced civilizations had gone silent, their complex systems shut down to avoid detection, humanity's outdated equipment continued to pick up traces of the enemy's communications. In another corner of the facility, a team led by Yuki Tanaka, a brilliant Japanese engineer, was working on something equally crucial. "The cloaking device is ready for testing," she announced. This wasn't a high-tech invisibility shield like in science fiction movies. Instead, it was a clever system designed to make Earth appear uninhabited from space. By carefully manipulating their energy emissions and camouflaging their satellites, they hoped to make their planet seem like just another lifeless rock. Meanwhile, in cities and towns across the globe, everyday life had taken on a surreal quality. People went about their routines, but with a new sense of purpose. Farmers tended their crops with extra care, knowing each harvest could be crucial for survival. Teachers educated children not just about math and history, but about the importance of resourcefulness and courage in the face of the unknown. In a small village in India, an old woman named Priya sat with a group of children, telling them stories of how their ancestors had survived invasions and natural disasters. "We are still here," she said, her eyes twinkling, "because we never gave up, and we never will." Back in the Operation Whisper facility, a breakthrough was unfolding. Amadi, the young African representative who had inspired hope at the UN meeting, had been working with a team of linguists. They had been analyzing the intercepted Void Eater communications, trying to decipher their language. "I think we've cracked it," Amadi said, his voice filled with excitement and fear in equal measure. "They're not just communicating. They're celebrating." The room fell silent as Amadi explained. The Void Eaters weren't just mindless destroyers. They were intelligent beings who saw the consumption of worlds as a form of art. Each civilization they devoured was a new flavor, a new experience. And they were eagerly anticipating their next meal. President Chen, who had been overseeing the operation, felt a chill run down her spine. "So we're not just fighting for survival," she said slowly. "We're fighting to avoid becoming their next delicacy." Dr. Johnson nodded grimly. "But this also gives us an advantage. They're not expecting resistance. They see us as food, not as a threat." As this realization sank in, a new determination filled the room. Humanity might be afraid, but they were far from helpless. Their fear was driving them to innovate, to push beyond their limits. General Torres summed it up best. "We may be cowards compared to those alien civilizations hiding in the dark, but we're brave enough to stand and fight, and that makes all the difference." As night fell over the facility, the work continued. Operation Whisper was more than just a mission. It was humanity's quiet defiance against the cosmic horror that threatened to devour them. With each intercepted signal, each small breakthrough, they were proving that sometimes the most powerful whisper could be louder than the boldest shout. The Void Eaters were coming, expecting an easy meal. But humanity, in all its messy, emotional, frightened glory, was preparing a surprise. The galaxy was about to learn that there was nothing more dangerous than a species too stubborn, too creative, and yes, too scared to simply lie down and accept its fate. The old warehouse on the outskirts of Buenos Aires looked abandoned, its rusty walls covered in graffiti. But appearances can be deceiving. Inside, history was about to be made. Dr. Sarah Johnson stood nervously beside President Chen, her eyes fixed on the warehouse's heavy metal door. General Torres paced back and forth, his hand never far from his weapon. "Are you sure about this?" Torres growled. "It could be a trap." President Chen nodded firmly. "We have to try. If what they told us is true, this could change everything." A week ago, Operation Whisper had intercepted a strange message. It wasn't from the Void Eaters. It was a plea for help, sent on a frequency so old that only Earth's primitive technology could pick it up. The door creaked open. Everyone held their breath as a figure stepped into the light. It wasn't human. The being was tall and slender, with iridescent skin that seemed to shift colors. Its large, almond-shaped eyes blinked nervously at the group. "I am Zix," the alien said, its voice a melodious whisper. "Thank you for answering our call." More aliens emerged from the shadows, each different from the last. There was Gloop, a gelatinous being that moved like a living ocean. Crix, an insectoid creature with compound eyes and delicate wings. And Whisper, a gaseous entity that communicated through subtle color changes. These were the refugees, the ones who had refused to hide when their advanced civilizations went dark. They had been running, searching for anyone brave enough to stand against the Void Eaters. We thought we were alone," Dr. Johnson said, her voice filled with wonder and hope. Zix nodded sadly. "Many have hidden. Others have fallen. But we could not stand by and watch our galaxy be devoured. When we detected your transmissions, we knew we had to reach out. As the humans and aliens began to share information, an unlikely alliance started to form. The aliens were amazed by humanity's resourcefulness and determination. The humans were in awe of the advanced knowledge the aliens brought. In a corner, Yuki Tanaka was deep in conversation with Gloop. The alien's liquid form rippled with excitement as Yuki explained Earth's cloaking technology. "Fascinating," Gloop burbled. "You've achieved with simple materials what our civilizations couldn't with all our advanced tech. The Void Eaters would never expect this." Meanwhile, Amati and Crix were comparing notes on the Void Eaters' language. "Your insights are incredible," Crix chittered, its antennae twitching. "You've understood nuances that even our best linguists missed." As the day wore on, a sense of hope began to grow. The aliens shared stories of other pockets of resistance across the galaxy, small groups that had been too scared to act alone. Earth, with its bold plan and unexpected strategies, could be the catalyst that united them all. President Chen stood on a makeshift platform, addressing the mixed group of humans and aliens. "Today we prove that diversity is strength," she said, her voice firm. "Each of us brings something unique to this fight. Together, we have a chance." General Torres, who had been skeptical at first, found himself nodding in agreement. "We may be the underdogs," he said gruffly, "but in my experience, those are often the most dangerous fighters." As night fell, the warehouse buzzed with activity. Humans and aliens worked side by side, combining Earth's unconventional tactics with advanced alien knowledge. Plans were made, strategies devised, and for the first time since the Void Eaters appeared, there was a real sense that they could be stopped. Dr. Johnson found herself standing next to Zix, both of them watching the collaborative effort unfold. "I have to ask," she said hesitantly, "why did you choose to help us? We must seem so primitive compared to your people." Zix turned its shimmering gaze to her, its eyes filled with something that looked like admiration. "Primitive? No, you are something we had almost forgotten how to be. You're brave, not because you're fearless, but because you act despite your fear. In all the galaxy, you humans were the only ones brave enough to stand and fight. As the unlikely allies continued their work, a new chapter in galactic history was being written. The Void Eaters were still coming, their hunger unabated. But now, they would face not just humanity, but a united front of those who refused to go quietly into the night. The cowardly humans, it turned out, were exactly the heroes the galaxy needed. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. In the command center of Operation Whisper, humans and aliens alike held their breath. On the main screen, a blinking dot represented the Void Eater scout ship approaching Earth's solar system. "This is it," President Chen said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "Everything we've worked for comes down to this moment." Dr. Sarah Johnson nodded, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "Cloaking system is active. As far as they can tell, Earth is just another lifeless rock." Beside her, Zik's iridescent skin rippled with nervous energy. "Your technology is remarkable," the alien whispered. "In all my travels, I've never seen anything like it." General Torres stood at the back, his scared face set in grim determination. "Remember," he growled, "we're not just defending Earth. We're fighting for every world these monsters have threatened." The plan was daring in its simplicity. Using Earth's primitive cloaking technology, they would lure the Void Eater scout into a trap. A small fleet of ships, cobbled together from human and alien tech, lay in wait behind Mars. Hours ticked by. The Void Eater scout entered the solar system, its massive form dwarfing planets as it passed. It approached Earth, paused as if confused, then began to move away. "Now," President Chen shouted. From behind Mars, the Ragdig fleet burst into action. Leading the charge was a ship piloted by Amadi, the young diplomat whose words had inspired hope when all seemed lost. The Void Eater scout, caught off guard, tried to retreat, but Earth's fleet was faster, more maneuverable. They swarmed the massive ship like angry bees, each strike precisely targeted based on the intelligence they had gathered. In the command center, cheers erupted as the first shots hit home. But the battle was far from over. "They're powering up their main weapon," Gloop burbled, its gelatinous form quivering with alarm. "Evasive maneuvers," General Torres barked into the comm. On the screen, they watched as Amadi's ship narrowly avoided a beam of energy that could have vaporized a planet. The young pilot's voice crackled over the radio. "A little too close for comfort, but we're still in the game." The battle raged on. Earth's ships darted and weaved, striking at the Void Eater's weak points. The massive scout, designed to consume worlds, found itself outmatched by the very prey it had come to devour. In a small town in Kansas, Tom the truck driver sat in his usual spot at the diner, eyes glued to the TV. The news was broadcasting live updates from space, courtesy of Cricks's advanced communication tech. "Would you look at that?" Tom muttered, shaking his head in wonder. "Humans and aliens fighting side by side. Never thought I'd see the day." Marge, the waitress, nodded as she refilled his coffee. "Gives you hope, doesn't it? If we can do this, maybe we really can save the galaxy." Back in space, the tide of battle had turned. The Void Eater scout, its hull breached in multiple places, began to retreat in earnest. But Amadi and his fellow pilots weren't about to let it escape to warn others. In a daring maneuver, Amadi flew his ship directly into the path of the scout's main engine. "For Earth and for every world they've threatened," he shouted, launching his last missile. The explosion lit up space like a new sun. When the light faded, the Void Eater scout was nothing but debris, floating harmlessly in the void. In the command center, a moment of stunned silence was followed by an eruption of cheers, hugs, and tears of joy. Humans and aliens celebrated together, united in their victory. President Chen stood on shaky legs, her eyes shining with pride. "We did it," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "We really did it." Dr. Johnson nodded, wiping tears from her eyes. "This is just the beginning," she said. "But now we know it's possible. We can fight them. We can win. As news of the victory spread across Earth and to hidden pockets of resistance throughout the galaxy, a new feeling began to take hold. It wasn't just hope. It was determination. The Void Eaters had seemed unstoppable, but now the galaxy knew their secret weakness. They had underestimated the power of those they thought were prey. The cowardly humans, the ones brave enough to stand and fight, had won the first battle. And in doing so, they had ignited a spark that would soon become a blazing fire of resistance across the stars. In the weeks following their victory over the Void Eater scout ship, Earth buzzed with activity. The unlikely alliance of humans and alien refugees worked tirelessly, preparing for the next phase of their plan. They knew the real challenge was yet to come. Dr. Sarah Johnson stood before a holographic display in the heart of Operation Whisper's command center. Her eyes sparkled with a mix of excitement and apprehension as she addressed the gathered leaders. "We fought ourselves some time," she began, "but the main Void Eater fleet is still out there. And now, they'll be looking for us." President Chen nodded grimly. "So what's our next move?" It was Zix who stepped forward, its iridescent skin shimmering with an idea. "We use your greatest strength," the alien said. "We use your apparent weakness." And so, Operation Foolscap was born, a daring plan to convince the Void Eaters that Earth was not the threat they feared, but an insignificant, primitive world barely worth noticing. In orbit around Earth, a massive construction project began. Using a combination of Earth's outdated technology and the aliens' advanced knowledge, they built what appeared to be a crude, clumsy space station. "It looks like it's held together with duct tape and hope," General Torres grumbled, staring at the structure through a telescope. Yuki Tanaka grinned proudly. "That's the point," she said. "It's designed to look primitive and harmless, while hiding our true capabilities." Meanwhile, on the surface, a different kind of preparation was underway. In every city, town, and village, humans were being trained in the art of deception. In a small classroom in Mumbai, an elderly teacher named Priya instructed a group of children. "Remember," she said kindly, "if you ever see one of the sky monsters, act scared and confused. Run around, but don't run away. We want them to think we're too silly to be a real threat." Across the globe, similar scenes played out. Farmers were taught to tend their fields inefficiently. Scientists practiced looking baffled by simple technology. World leaders rehearsed speeches filled with nonsensical bluster and empty threats. It was a performance on a global scale, all designed to make humanity appear harmless and not worth the Void Eater's time. In the Kansas diner, Tom the truck driver practiced his part. He walked into a wall, then looked around in confusion. "How's that?" he asked Marge the waitress. Marge applauded. "Perfect. You look dumber than a box of rocks." As the days passed, tension mounted. The Void Eater main fleet was approaching, and Earth's great deception was about to be put to the ultimate test. In the command center, President Chen paced nervously. "Are we sure about this?" she asked. "We're basically painting a target on our backs." Ahmadi, the young pilot who had become a hero after the last battle, smiled confidently. "That's the beauty of it, Madam President. We're not hiding. We're hiding in plain sight." Dr. Johnson nodded in agreement. "The Void Eaters expect resistance or capitulation. They won't know what to make of us." As the Void Eater fleet entered the solar system, Earth put on its show. The clumsy space station accidentally broadcast nonsensical messages. Satellites bumped into each other like cosmic bumper cars. And on the surface, humanity played the role of a species too primitive to understand the danger it faced. In the lead Void Eater ship, the alien commander stared at the display in confusion. "What are these creatures doing?" it asked its second-in-command. "It appears they're celebrating our arrival," the subordinate replied, bafflement clear in its voice. The commander's many eyes blinked in bewilderment. "Surely this can't be the species that destroyed our scout ship. Perhaps it was someone else, and these humans just happened to be here." As the Void Eater fleet hovered uncertainly, Earth continued its charade. In homes and bunkers, humans held their breath, hoping their performance was convincing. In the command center, President Chen watched the main screen intently. "Come on," she whispered. "Take the bait." After what seemed like an eternity, the Void Eater fleet began to move, but instead of attacking, they started to withdraw. "It's working," Dr. Johnson exclaimed. "They're leaving." As cheers erupted around her, President Chen allowed herself a small smile. Earth's greatest deception had succeeded. By playing the fool, they had outwitted a force that had terrorized the galaxy. The battle was far from over, but humanity had proven once again that sometimes being underestimated was the greatest advantage of all. The galaxy held its breath. Earth's great deception had worked, but the Void Eaters were still out there, still hungry. In secret bunkers and hidden bases across the planet, humans and their alien allies prepared for the final act of their daring plan. Dr. Sarah Johnson stood before a sea of faces, human and alien alike. Her voice was steady as she spoke. "Today, we end this threat once and for all. Today, we show the galaxy that bravery comes in many forms." Operation Thunderclap was about to begin. As the Void Eater fleet moved towards a distant star system, lured by false information planted by Earth's unlikely alliance, a shadow followed them. Hidden by advanced cloaking technology, a massive armada of ships from every corner of the galaxy trailed the unsuspecting Void Eaters. On the bridge of the lead ship, President Chen stood shoulder to shoulder with Zix, Gloop, and representatives from a dozen other species. Each had answered Earth's call, inspired by the courage of the humans who dared to stand against the cosmic horror. "Remember," Chen said, her voice carried to every ship in the fleet, "we fight not just for Earth, but for every world, every species that has lived in fear. Today, we say no more." A cheer went up across the armada, a chorus of voices in 100 different languages united in purpose. As the Void Eater fleet approached their target, the trap was sprung. From every direction, ships decloaked. The sky lit up with weapons fire as the galaxy's united forces unleashed their fury on the surprised Void Eaters. In the Kansas diner, Tom and Marge watched the battle unfold on the news. The diner was packed, every eye glued to the screen. "Would you look at that?" Tom whispered in awe. "Humans, right there in the thick of it." Marge nodded, wiping a tear from her eye. "Who'd have thought our cowardice would lead to this?" Back in space, the battle raged. The Void Eaters, caught completely off guard, struggled to mount a defense. Ships piloted by humans darted between the massive Void Eater vessels, their unconventional tactics sowing chaos and confusion. Amati's voice crackled over the comms. "Their flagship is vulnerable. This is our chance." President Chen nodded to General Torres. "Do it," she said. Torres pressed a button, and from the depths of their ship, a missile launched. But this was no ordinary weapon. Built with the combined knowledge of a dozen species, it carried a payload designed to do the impossible, to turn the Void Eaters' hunger against them. The missile struck true, burrowing deep into the heart of the Void Eater flagship. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a strange light began to pulse from within the massive ship. "It's working," Dr. Johnson shouted, her eyes wide as she monitored the readings. "The energy conversion is cascading through their fleet." One by one, the Void Eater ships began to implode, consumed by the very hunger they had used to terrorize the galaxy. In a brilliant flash of light, the threat that had loomed over countless worlds for eons vanished. A stunned silence fell over the united fleet, broken only by the crackle of static over the comms. Then, slowly, cheers began to rise. Tears of joy, whoops of triumph, and sighs of relief mingled in a symphony of victory. On Earth, celebrations erupted. Streets filled with people, hugging, dancing, looking to the stars with new wonder. In the UN building, world leaders embraced, old rivalries forgotten in the face of their shared triumph. As the united fleet made its way back to Earth, President Chen found a quiet moment amidst the jubilation. She stood by a window, gazing out at the stars. Zix approached, its iridescent skin glowing with joy. "You did it," the alien said softly. "You saved us all." Chen shook her head, smiling. "We did it, all of us, together." "But it was Earth that showed us the way," Zix insisted. "You, who we once thought primitive and cowardly, taught the galaxy the true meaning of courage." As Earth came into view, a blue jewel hanging in the vastness of space, Chen felt a swell of pride. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and emerged victorious. They had proven that true bravery wasn't about being fearless, but about standing strong in the face of fear. The cowardly humans, it turned out, were the heroes the galaxy had been waiting for all along. And as their ships touched down on Earth, they knew this wasn't an ending, but a new beginning for humanity and for the entire galaxy.